the end of this show will be our most underrated quarterbacks in the NFL. The topic was top 5, but we talked about this before the show. I couldn't come up with 5. Dallas couldn't come up with 5. I don't know if Riv came up with 5. I know Drew had all 5.
I just feel like, because the way, how do you view underrated, right? Like, is it what people think?
I'm just thinking public's perception.
Yeah, but that's what I don't think people underrate a lot of quarterbacks.
I'll also say they didn't have 5 because they didn't want to say Tua is underrated.
I don't think Tua is underrated.
He's underrated because I have a guy right here who tells me every single time we talk about him he's bad.
I have two people.
I don't think you have guys like Joel.
I don't think he's bad.
You have Dolphins fan who think he's like a top 5 quarterback.
I don't think he's a top 5 quarterback.
Yes, you do.
No, I don't.
Top 10.
Hey,
I have 2. I have 2 names.
2?
Yes.
For most underrated quarterbacks?
At least I got the 4.
All right, let me name them. Kyler Murray, most definitely.
I think everybody should have Kyler Murray.
Yes, he's easily on this list. Next name.
Purdy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Brock Purdy.
Yeah. Purdy's definitely underrated.
I'll follow it up. Those are 2 of my names. Kyler Murray, Brock Purdy. I think Kyler has gotten overlooked. Number 1.
People think he ass.
Because of the stupid fucking video game shit. So people just think that, like, he doesn't know ball, or like you have to force him to love football. You can't go out there and do the things he's doing in the NFL if you're not studying tape. Like, of course, athletically, he could just beat guys, but he's a really good player. And Brock Purdy, I do think, is a bit underrated. I don't think, not that we've done it recently, but like the Jimmy Garoppolo type thing. Well, you could just plug in XYZ quarterback. You can plug in a lot of quarterbacks to what San Francisco has going for them, and they'd be able to succeed. But I also think Brock Purdy was tremendous. I think he's a great processor. I think he's more mobile than people give him credit for. I think he throws with great touch and anticipation. He doesn't have the biggest arm. He's not making insane throws off platform that we see Josh Allen and Mahomes make. That's fine. But I think for what he's asked to do, he does it and then some. So that's why I think he's underrated.
Can I ask you a question? How many quarterbacks can you plug into Cincinnati and they'll still operate?
I can tell you there's maybe one quarterback you can plug into Cincinnati and they make the Super Bowl. The year they made it.
And it's Mahomes?
Yeah, that's it.
I didn't ask that.
Yeah, but that...
Just one?
I think Josh can too.
Josh, I don't know.
All I asked was just operate.
You don't
went
know?
Extreme and went Super Bowl.
That year, Joe Burrow took one of the worst offensive lines. Was
that the 13 seconds year?
That was, yes.
Josh was fucking amazing that year.
No, he was. Josh Allen is amazing.
That year, though, that was the perfect
Here's
game.
the thing. Burrow played exceedingly well against Tennessee. I think that was 375. Didn't throw a touchdown, but had a very clutch throw to end the game to Jamar Chase. Jamar Chase was wide open. That being said, you have to hit the throw, and that's exactly what Joe Burrow did. Not minimizing. Stop laughing.
You didn't have to say
game
that.
versus the Raiders.
It was really good.
Got blessed, though, with that no whistle to T. Higgins touchdown. And then
they also had a chance to win it right at the end of the red zone.
They did. And then, of course, the Raiders couldn't clutch up right at the very end. The game versus the Chiefs.
It was really good.
Good game.
I'm throwing Josh Allen in that mix.
Easy.
I mean, you can.
Super
I'm not mad at that.
Maybe.
I mean, Josh Allen.
You don't think Herb could do it?
Herbie could have done it.
Herb's in that conversation.
I mean, he blew a
I'll tell you what,
27-0 lead.
He didn't blow it.
Justin Herbert is
Did he
another
not have
name.
offensive possessions?
Lamar?
He did blow it.
Justin Herbert's
Technically,
another
he did.
name I have on my list is underrated. I think it's
What'd you
very
say?
Justin
Herbert?
Herbert.
Me too.
He's someone that to me is so stamped top 5. Like that top 5 for me really cannot move. When you're looking at Mahomes, Allen, Burrow, Herbert, and Lamar, like those top 5 right now to me, it's gonna be real difficult to add
Polar
anyone
Bear in
into
Arlington,
that mix.
Texas.
Who? Polar Bear? Fucking casual.
I think the Polar Bear might be Herbert.
But Justin Herbert has all the arm
black guy.
talent.
You are
He's got the
racist.
mobility. He's got there's nothing Herbert is missing as a quarterback, and people they clown on him because he doesn't win, because he hasn't won a playoff game. You blow the 27-0 lead. If we're doing a draft of NFL quarterbacks, there's 3, maybe 4 dudes. I think there's a lot of GMs that are taking him over Lamar Jackson. I think there's even probably GMs that take him over Joe Burrow because of his injury history.
So he goes 3.
That's not disrespect out of those guys. But if you're starting a franchise right now, Herbert is one of the top guys. I'm not taking no respect to Matt Stafford, CJ Stroud, like all these dudes you see poked over him. I don't see that.
Respect Staffy.
You know, Riv, to answer your question,
don't
Talk to me. I was just genuinely asking.
I don't think the Bengals are taken seriously if Jared Goff is their quarterback.
Yeah.
That's fair. Okay.
And I feel like that's probably the lowest I would go without trying to disrespect anybody else.
I respect that.
But, you know, like...
Kirk Cousins, he makes it?
No.
Stafford makes it.
Stafford makes it.
Okay, we're here then. We're getting something.
I think Stafford's amazing. But Joe Burrow is one of the only reasons. There's a lot of reasons. The Bengals are a great team.
Make it, really?
No, I don't think so. Joe Burrow is one of the reasons why we look at the Bengals and we say, okay, that's actually a legit team.
Absolutely.
It's because of him.
Of course,
For sure.
So my underrated quarterbacks, number 4 is Trevor Lawrence for me. And
He was on my list
I don't
also.
feel good about having him so low, but because he
rank
could
him.
be higher. I did rank them, yeah. He 15 missed touchdowns where he threw the ball, not the easiest of catches, but definitely catchable passes where just a slither or something went wrong. I mentioned it on a previous show. He had the worst drop rate of any quarterback over the last 3 seasons, and he was number 1 in EPA lost to drop passes this past season. And I don't think the personnel this past season for Trevor Lawrence and the play calling and how they use the personnel made much sense because Calvin Ridley is 6 foot, maybe like a $190. He's not a physical outside receiver, but that's where he lined up most of the time. That's why whenever Zay Jones was in the lineup, Calvin Ridley had blow up games because Press Taylor finally used him how he was supposed to be used. I think now Trevor Lawrence has a offense that makes much more sense with Brian Thomas being a physical receiver and you still having Christian Kirk there and Gabe Davis now being the X that is just going to line up and go on goal routes and posts and things of that nature. This past year, Trevor Lawrence was actually more accurate than he was last year in 2022. And I feel like people didn't take any progressive thing from Lawrence's season this past year because of the box score stats. But he really showed that he can carry an offense that really has a lot of falling parts around it. Number 3, I had Geno Smith. Just because Geno Smith,
You're a Smithian.
I'm not sure how people view him.
Undoubtedly Smithian.
I feel like people still view him in the lens of being a journeyman spot starting quarterback.
You think?
So, kind of like a Jacoby Brissett.
You think so?
I don't think so.
I think people respect Geno more than you believe.
I feel like
I think Trevor gets disrespected far more.
I think he could because he's more of a name, right? He has a generational prospect tag to him. But with Geno Smith, I don't think anybody really appreciated the season he had last year. It's a drop off from he had 30 and 11 in 2022 to in 2023 he had 20 and 9, but he led the league in game-winning drives with 4 fourth quarter comebacks. The defense for the Seahawks was horrendous.
Bad.
There were 6 in most allowed pressures. He played with a terrible offensive line, and there are games here and there that he could have won. Like you look at the Dallas Cowboys game. I thought the Seahawks were robbed. Based on the play call in that game, the things that Dallas got away with, if that was in Jerry World, I thought Seattle got robbed in that game. And then his other game was against Cincinnati where he was in the red zone. He couldn't complete a comeback. But we're talking about a guy that really put Seattle's offense on his back and had to make a lot of tough throws that we're only asking the top echelon quarterbacks to make. Seattle was giving all of that to Geno and telling him to make those throws. And he made them. And I feel like he has the talent to where he's one of the better starters. I don't think
I like Geno a lot.
I don't think he's just a spot starter. I think he's legitimately, if you have that guy in the right parts, he can win you multiple playoff games. I think he's that good. And then, like you guys mentioned, Kyler Murray. I think he's number 2.
Glad you're showing him respect.
Yeah, Kyler Murray, people don't mention this, but last year when he was inserted into the lineup, they had the second best rushing offense, according to EPA per rush.
James Conner was amazing.
He was number 1 in like forced tackles. He was amazing. That was up from 13th before Kyler was inserted to the lineup. You're taking a 11 jump, really. 11 jumps in a ranking because of his presence. And now with Marvin Harrison Jr. in town, I feel like that just unlocks their offense even more.
Trey McBride
like,
drafted Trey Benson.
Yeah, that's why I'm really high on the Cardinals. I think their offense will be really good. The defense is really what you have to sell me on because there's so much unproven players there. But
Gannon, you think he can turn it around? I feel like there's anyone. Gannon is a really good head coach.
I
in my
think so.
opinion.
I feel as if last year the Cardinals were just trying shit.
Yep.
They were just trying to see what worked, and they weren't trying to give up explosive plays, so they played in like quarters coverage all the time. But their defense is still very unproven to me. But that's why I think the NFC West is so good. And number 1 is Dak. I think Dak is the most underrated. I do. I feel like he has to shoulder a huge load for Dallas. He does.
I think Dak, because I see Riv's face is looking crazy. I think the only reason Dak gets underrated is because of the playoffs.
We just had him as an MVP candidate.
It's just because I think it's crazy. Maybe not crazy because of roster construction, but the thought of moving off Dak for the Dallas Cowboys, I don't know what other option you want out there. I don't think you're finding a quarterback upgrade. I get it. You got to pay CeeDee. You got to pay Micah. You got to pay Dak. Figure it out. I don't.
Yeah.
It's not my job. Somebody in Dallas has to figure that out because you need all three quarterbacks there.
The reason why I think Dak
players,
is underrated, the stat I mentioned with Josh Allen earlier, where when he's hit or hurried, he's 6th in EPA. Dak was number 1. Dak under duress.
Dak had a great season.
I know he did. He over the past 2 seasons, he's been number 2 in success rate. Number 1 is Brock Purdy. I mean, he leads like all those advanced metrics.
He's not on your list.
No, because Jimmy Garoppolo was 10th over the past 2 seasons.
Wow, he just
Jimmy's
did it.
10, Purdy's 1. A 10 spot
He just
jump.
did
You
it.
just said.
Well, that's adding in the Raiders tenure with Jimmy G.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, over the past 2 seasons.
I didn't even
Oh, I thought you
understand.
meant with San Fran. My bad.
It's not a knock on Purdy because I think Purdy.
Obviously it was.
I think Purdy has great traits to him, but
Purdy's not underrated.
There
Real
are
quick, where are we ranking Dak? Like he's around 10 for me.
He's a top 10 quarterback.
He's like a top 8 quarterback.
Yeah, okay.
But like 10, like he'd be like 9, 10.
8 to 12,
that's
somewhere in
perfectly
that
said.
He was
range.
just about to win MVP if he didn't fuck up and lose that big game. I forgot who they played.
Well, he lost to Miami. That was
Packers.
a fold, and then they lost.
No, it was before that. It was a regular season game where he had an
the
opportunity.
Dolphins.
It might have been the
Oh,
Dolphins.
the Bills. You're talking about the Bills.
The Bills game.
Ah,
that
They had
Bills
it-
game
they
was
got-
terrible.
they got
ugly.
smoked
No, yeah.
out.
And I think Dak Prescott still has those question marks, but the reason why I call him underrated is because, like I said, he's been one of the best quarterbacks in the league the past 2 years, and every ounce of the Cowboys' failures gets put on him. I think that's the national media in general. And if you would hear how they talk about Dak, you would think that he's easily replaceable. And Dells is just mentioning that it's hard to replace a guy like that. And there are teams that are hoping he hits the open market
Giants.
because that's going to make their quarterback room that much better. They're going to have a guy that can actually win. But you look at what he has to overcome. Offensive line injuries he's had to overcome. Lack of playmakers on the outside. CeeDee Lamb is a great player, but really they didn't do much to surround him outside of that. The running game wasn't
Well, they
there
tried.
last year. And every year we continue to say the Cowboys are just a bit short. Well, this past year, I feel worse about them than coming into this last season, because they were smoked out versus the Packers, and against elite teams, they didn't look like they matched up. But that's because Dak has to cover up for so much. But Jerry Jones, who's always hell-bent on winning, doesn't open up his checkbook and bring in top-end talent. They lost Tyron Smith this past season. Terrence Steele, who's starting at right tackle for them, last year he was one of the worst tackles in the league. And now you're starting Tyler Guyton, a rookie left tackle, opposite of him, and Tyler Biadasz left in free agency. There's 3 new starters. All 3 of them could very well be below average. They are asking Dak to do a lot with a not so talented supporting cast. And I feel like whenever they lose, it gets pinned on him. But he, like a lot of other quarterbacks at the top of the league, he is carrying an offense, and he's carrying it to where the numbers are at the top of the league. And he's doing a lot for an offense that really should be helping him more.
I think your thought process is sound. I do believe that Dak gets a lot of blame. Do I think that he's the only reason that they lost to the Packers? Absolutely not. Watch the game. The defense was atrocious for the Cowboys. He was to blame, though. Not the main. He is to blame.
Yeah, for sure.
He did not play well. Them going down 21-0, he had a hand in that. So I do believe that overall, I agree Dak can be underrated. But he's still not free of criticism like a lot of other quarterbacks. I'm not saying that you're saying that he's a perfect quarterback, but I couldn't say he deserves to be 1 on this list for the fact of he was just an MVP candidate. He was just top 3 in MVP, if I'm not mistaken, and was second team
All-Pro?
All-Pro, or did Josh snatch that from him?
He wasn't an all-pro.
It was Josh was second team.
It probably was,
But
yeah.
Interesting, because then Dak came in second in MVP, but didn't come
think
in
he was
second
second.
All-Pro.
So I'm looking at the all-pro team right now.
I think it
Quarterback
was
was Lamar.
and then second
Lamar was
Dak.
first team. Second team, you're right. It was Dak.
Correct. Okay,
Yeah.
I thought so.
He can't be underrated.
He was acknowledged. He can be underrated for people trying to say, like they're saying, that he's replaceable. That's bullshit and wrong.
Okay, that's fair. But he just made second team.
1 on this list, Trevor Lawrence. To me, Trevor Lawrence, if you would have put him number 1, I would have put my hands
like
up
it
on
should
the
Do you
be
shield.
think that the
Day1.
perception is that Dak Prescott is much better than Trevor Lawrence?
Much better.
Because I mean, from what I see, I feel
Is
like
he much
both
better
guys.
than Trevor?
I think Dak is better than
Much better is the word you use. That's why I'm
I think they're in the same tier. Not gonna lie.
much better is no.
Trevor. They're close. I think Dak is much more consistent, and
He does have a lot. He has a better situation. Although Dak's not great, it's significantly better than what Trevor has.
Like, I look at Dak
in the league for fucking 8 years.
And the other top quarterbacks in the league, I look at Dak and I compare what he's gotten coaching wise in his career to all the other guys. I think he's gotten lesser coaching staffs, and it's kind of.
You're not a McCarthy guy anymore?
I think McCarthy's really good, but he's not Sean McVay. He's not one of the top offensive coaches in the league. And
Trevor Lawrence had Doug Peterson.
No, I know. With Dak Prescott,
that's why I put Trevor Lawrence here.
With Dak Prescott, it's not just a this year thing. It's more so of like an overarching outlook of his career, where I feel like Dak Prescott is going to go down as one of the more underrated quarterbacks that played in this era.
But like no Herbert on this list either.
I feel like I always see Herbert in top 5 lists.
I feel like K1 should be 1 on everybody's list.
That's also fine. I'm
think-
fine with K1.
He's the one that's getting called
I thought
complete
K1's
trash.
placement was great.
No, if Kyler's 1, I have no argument with that.
Yeah.
I don't. But I think it's just an overarching outlook on Dak's career where I think he's one of the more, he's probably the most underrated
Dak
quarterback.
gets
in this
underrated
era.
because at the end of every Cowboys season, they disappoint.
Yep.
And so because they disappoint, you always, and we do this with every quarterback, this isn't just a Dak thing, you look at the quarterback first. It always happens. It happens with Josh. Mahomes wins all the time, so it doesn't really happen with him. But it happens with Lamar. Like, it happens. So this isn't just a Dak thing. But Dallas always disappoints. And it just so happens that last year, it was just a lot worse than most years. And Dak was one of the main components of that.
No, yeah, I agree with that. I mean, the Packers loss was embarrassing.
It was in Dallas, too. That's what made it worse.
He just gets hated so much that I think he could get underrated. But similar to you, how you say you see Justin Herbert in the top 5, and I do see Herbert in a lot of top 5s, but I think I just saw Chris Sims and he was like 7 or some shit. But I think since Dak gets so much hate, the perception is possibly he's underrated. But I also think when I see quarterback rankings, I've never seen Dak's placement and been like, that's out of line. Like, he's been pretty consistent, like top 12. And shit, for Herbert, it's not like I ever see him outside the top 10 or anything crazy.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I feel like the Dak Prescott underrated ranking, it could fall in line with a lot of other quarterbacks. Brock Purdy. I think Jared Goff.
Yeah, come on.
Those are guys
Let
that
it
come,
out.
Oh, Tua. He wasn't in my mind, but
Yeah.
I could give you the benefit of the doubt.
Tua
So,
easily can
To be
be on
fair, I've
this
seen
list.
Trevor Lawrence ranking drop.
I'm in no mood
Who's your-
for a 50-minute debate. But the players that I did have,
But my fourth was Trevor Lawrence as well.
I had Trevor Lawrence, Tua Tagovailoa, Kirk Cousins, Justin Herbert, Kyler Murray. I feel like those are the 5 you have to have. I respect Geno Smith here. To me, that's another one I feel like I haven't heard overly
I just don't see a lot of Geno
criticized.
conversations.
Correct. And
That's what it
that's where it can be fair to say that's disrespect alone.
I don't see Seattle get talked about a lot.
They don't because they're mid.
Yeah.
They're mid.
That's what it is. So it might be underrated. I just don't see a lot of people talk about Geno or
He
Seattle.
just has to make up for he was a bust, 2nd-round pick,
Which is a
backup
lot.
type
That
thing.
shit
So
is
like,
a lot to
even
make
when
up
he
for.
put up the 30 touchdown, 10 interception
Now you have to
season,
make up for it.
it's still
You gotta see
like
it again.
that's not enough. Like you've been a backup basically for a decade, and now you have one good year. So I think that's why he still gets underrated.
I think the point you made was the reason why I had him as an underrated quarterback is because he doesn't get talked about, but he is asked to do the things that all the guys that we're talking about on the top
believe
are
it.
asked to do. And he makes a lot of those really insane throws.
It's just the quarterback. It's just so many talented quarterbacks. So like, I'm gonna do my quarterback list in August. I just don't know if it's gonna be like higher than like 16, maybe. I think that's like kind of where he fits. That's not disrespect. It's just it's gonna be 15 guys ahead of him that are probably like 15, 14.
I need him at 12.
Yeah, no, and I think that I can't knock that
You'd rather
ranking too
Jared
much.
Goff than Brock Purdy.
Ooh.
You know what I mean?
They're super close. I like Purdy's mobility a lot.
We're here, guys. Come on.
But Jared Goff I think has better arm. It's close. They're gonna be
Tua or
same tier.
Purdy.
Probably Purdy.
We're here,
His
Dallas.
mobility.